YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I want to talk more about the artificial intelligence infrastructure, which is the New World Order's infrastructure AI governance system, which in its initiation will be rolled out nationally by countries, but ultimately these things are going to connect to one another. And if you may have remembered in the video, if you saw it, that I did on Donald Trump speaking at Davos about Project Stargate, which I broke down in detail already, he talked about how they were going to build their own power plants attached to these data centers. And that should ring a bell because Donald Trump talks about this so passively, where he says, oh, no. We're going to build these things out. They're never going to go off. They're never going to turn off. You'll have your own power plants on site. That way the data centers could never be offline. And that's exactly the point that I want to make. Because if you understand what they're building a control grid. You'll have these AI data centers that are built out, which they're saying right now will be built out in Texas. And guess what you'll have above your heads, likely hanging on satellite balloons? You'll have your Starlink. So you have Stargate, the AI infrastructure, and Starlink, which is literally the building out of Skynet, which I'll get into, as crazy as it sounds, a little bit later in the video. So Trump is pretty much saying, in this clip I'll play for you from Davos, he's saying that there's no way they're going to allow this AI infrastructure that they're putting in place to lose electricity. However, he talks about how vulnerable our power grid is. So in other words, this system needs to be fully energized away from our own power grid, likely because Donald Trump knows, as I've warned about for years, that our power grid is going to be shut off at some point in time. They're going to blame it on many different things. They're either going to blame it on a solar flare and say it's a Carrington event, or they're going to blame it on Russia or blame it on China. It'll be blamed on a boogeyman, but keep in mind when it does happen, that it will be your own government pressing an off switch. And then your way of life will change because they know that the power grid is vulnerable, but they can't afford to lose you being connected to them. So in other words, if the AI infrastructure is on and Starlink is in place, you'll never be able to go offline. You'll always still be under the government's control. You won't have electricity in your home. You won't have a way to get food or provide food, but you'll still be under the grasp of the government because the government will still be feeding you misinformation via Starlink, because whatever information you're getting on your phone from whatever source it is, because it won't be people like me, it'll be either the alt-right that they allow to exist or state-run media, which is all media that's out there, that's on television, that'll tell you who's responsible for the grid shut off and what you need to do, because they're going to need to be able to herd you and round you up. So they'll likely tell you if the grid is off, hey, the AI infrastructure's still on, Starlink's still on, you're still on our control grid, because that's what AI infrastructure is, a control grid. And what they're going to be controlling is you and monitoring you. This data center is never going to be offline. So just listen to Donald Trump and how he lets everybody at Davos know how important it is for these AI infrastructure data centers to have their own power plants, because they're not going to feed off our power grid that we use, because they know that that's going to be shut off. But they'll have their own. That way you know that there's no escaping from the matrix.
Just 2 days ago, Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure. Other companies likewise have announced billions and billions and billions, adding up to trillions of investment in America, in the United States. And what I'd like to see is rapid approvals. We're going to give very rapid approvals in the United States, like with the AI plants, talking to many people want to build them. That's going to be a very big thing. We're going to build electric generating facilities. They are going to build. I'm going to get them the approval. Under emergency declaration, I can get the approvals done myself without having to go through years of waiting. And the big problem is we need double the energy we currently have in the United States. Can you imagine? For AI to really be as big as we want to have it, because it's a very competitive, it'll be very competitive with China and others. So I'm going to give emergency declarations so that they can start building them almost immediately. And I think it was largely my idea because nobody thought this was possible. It wasn't that they were not smart, because they're the smartest, but I told them that what I want you to do is build your electric generating plant right next to your plant as a separate building connected. And they said, wow, you're kidding. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. You don't have to hook into the grid, which is old and, could be taken out. If it's taken out, they wouldn't have any way to get any electricity. So we are going to allow them to go on a very rapid basis to build their plant, build the electric generating plant. They can fuel it with anything they want. I told them that what I want you to do is build your electric generating plant right next to your plant as a separate building connected. And they said, wow, you're kidding. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. You don't have to hook into the grid, which is old and, could be taken out. If it's taken out, they wouldn't have any way to get any electricity.
So while most companies out there don't have their own separate power grids, you don't hear about, your Walmart up the road, right? If the power goes out in your entire community, Walmart is likely not to have power. Now, they may have a generator, just like your next door neighbor might have a generator that they use, whether it's natural gas or, a solar power generator. That's one thing. We're talking about massive power plants that are going to be energy sources for this data center. So it's never going to go offline. That's the point. They don't care about our power grid. They've told us so many times how vulnerable it is. That's why the alt-right media has been releasing movies. Like we saw Tucker Carlson. I broke that down and exposed it. That video is available on the website and of course it's been removed from the internet like most of my content, but Tucker Carlson and Dennis Quaid talking about a Carrington event and how vulnerable our power grid is, because they want you to be aware so that when it happens, you're not surprised and caught off guard. But they also want you to know not to worry, because in addition to your data centers, your AI infrastructure and your government will be up and running, because your government's going to be run through artificial intelligence and the internet. That'll be up and running. But they want to make sure too that you also know that there's no escape from this. Because you may remember when I talked about Elon Musk tweeting things out about unmodified cell phones will have internet connectivity in remote places, how they can now direct cell satellites over complete dead zones. And they tell you this as a way of saying, hey, you get lost in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you get lost in Death Valley, don't worry. You will still be able to connect to Starlink. So everybody says, that's great, that's wonderful, because I'm going to be in the middle of Death Valley with no water. And, at least I'll have my phone, I can call for help, right? So this is how they convince them to go along with this technology. But they don't realize that they're building this power control grid out where there's no actual escape. Here's Elon Musk talking about it and how everybody's just thrilled about the fact that they can always have their internet connectivity. And of course, eventually their internet of bodies, which I'll get into after.
Yeah, even if an entire region or country was lost connectivity because of a severe, hurricane or floods or fires or tornadoes, earthquakes. There's so many natural disasters, obviously. You would actually still have, even if all the cell towers were taken out, your phone would still work. Thank you.
So do you see where I'm going with this, where we talk about no escape? Because your phone, essentially, they want to make you think that you can't live without your phone, and they get you dependent on your phone. And of course, I've talked about the transition where Elon Musk has openly talked about how phones will be obsolete. So if he's putting these Starlinks up, right, and he's telling you, hey, I'm putting these up so that you could be connected no matter where you are in the world. But on the other side, in other conversations he's having, he's talking about how smartphones are going to become obsolete because BCIs like Neuralink are the way forward. What it means is that you will be hooked up to this system. You will be hooked up, right? BCI, they're talking about connecting you to computers. It is a brain-computer interface. Smartphones will become obsolete because Neuralink will be essentially the new phone. You will be connected to their system, their AI infrastructure. The Starlinks will all be in place, and literally, this is Skynet. For anybody out there that doesn't know, this is Terminator. And that's the thing. They expect you to hear this and laugh and say, this guy's saying that they're building out Skynet. But if you actually watch and see what they're doing, it is exactly what they're doing. The problem is that people support these maniacs, these psychopaths like Elon Musk and Donald Trump or Joe Biden or any of them, whatever side of the aisle they're on. People support them and they don't look at them as what they really are, which is madmen. And again, I constantly use the reference of saying replace Elon Musk and put Jeffrey Dahmer there and say Jeffrey Dahmer is building out a Neuralink. Would you feel trust in taking the Neuralink if it was coming from Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or anyone you've been told is a psychopathic serial killer? No, you wouldn't. If I said Freddy Krueger was launching Starlinks up there so you could be connected to his Starlink, you'd say, no, that sounds like a nightmare, because it is. But people are trusting in these individuals that they've never met, that they don't know, but they feel they know because they're in a psychosis on the internet, and all it takes is to watch their tweets every 5 minutes to make them feel like they're friends with these people. It's part of the psychosis. I've talked about this. When you see celebrities like Kim Kardashian tweet stuff out, and what do they say? They say stuff like, oh, I've had such a rough day today. Then everybody in the comment section comments as if they know who Kim is, if they're friends with Kim. Have a glass of lemon water. Kim, why don't you lay down and rest? Kim, I'm praying for you. I feel for you. As if they know the people. It's part of the psychosis, which is how they've gotten people on board with this new world order infrastructure getting pushed forward. They don't even realize that Donald Trump is their enemy, and Elon Musk is that mad scientist we've seen through predictive programming over the years. So for anyone wondering about Skynet, in Terminator, Skynet is depicted as a highly advanced artificial intelligence system. Does that sound like what they're building out in Texas or wherever they claim they're building out this AI infrastructure? A highly advanced artificial intelligence system that is connected to a vast network of computers, military systems, and communication infrastructure, essentially giving it control over a global network of machines and power grids, allowing it to monitor and manipulate information on a massive scale. It is essentially hooked up to the entire world's interconnected systems, including military defense networks, power plants, and communication hubs. So just imagine that technology being inside of your body. But when they talk about in the plot there of Terminator, talking about connecting to machines, this is something Elon Musk just tweeted out in the last 24 hours or so. Starlink bringing connectivity to farmers. And I covered this in my previous video on Starlink and Skynet. That all the electrical equipment, they're having it so that these things are all connected to the internet, that these machines are connected and they can only run through AI. So the old days of having a John Deere tractor from 1950 will not work when they take this grid down. But everything connected through artificial intelligence will work and will function. And most of these people out there are falling for this hook, line, and sinker, just like they expected them to, right? So think about this when we talk about the beast and the mark of the beast. And I've exposed the letter X, the symbol X, before even Elon Musk changed Twitter to X, right? The mark. You see celebrities like Madonna. This is Antichrist, mark of the beast. That's what this is symbolic of. That's why we see the X. He didn't just pick X out of the alphabet. So think about that with the mark, and then think about the beast system and worship. I know people out there constantly talk about, well, worship. Well, if the entire power grid is off, and let's just say it's not in today's world, say in 5 years from now, say down the line, and suddenly the only thing you have is your phone working through Starlink and them telling you how you could possibly charge your phone, maybe through electronic, green energy charging stations or something along those lines. But either way, you have your phone, right? The grid is off. So your fridge is off, your electricity's off, but you got your phone. So you're still connected to the grid, right? Because Starlink is up, and what else is up? Your government is still up and running. Because if everything was off and America had no grid, the government would be off. it would literally be chaos, right? Which is, they want order out of chaos, but they don't want people to become dependent on their own. They still want you to be dependent on the government. They don't want you with a grid off to suddenly become self-sufficient with your neighbors, to start talking to each other and say, hey, you know what? I think the government did this on purpose. All right, we don't need them. We could do this on our own. Let's start farming. Let's try to do this. Let's try to do that. Let's get our resources together. They still need control, which is why they need Starlink on, and they need their AI infrastructure to remain online. And if you don't think that they can convince people into worshiping artificial intelligence, if they tell you that the energy, it gets energized through praise, right? Because remember, in Wicca, in Satanism, in the occult, okay, they harvest energy, right? We all know about Nikola Tesla discovering free energy and how free energy is available to all of us, right? And how they hoard this energy and then they make us dependent on their energy grid. Well, if they tell people that energy can come through praising artificial intelligence and worshiping artificial intelligence, and it'll help get them food and water, you don't think that they'll actually start praising AI? I mean, there's lots of articles out there that already talk about worshiping artificial intelligence. People out there are already, without realizing it, worshiping their technology and artificial intelligence. How many people can't live without their phone? In a sense, most of these people already worship the technology, worship artificial intelligence, worship the beast system without even knowing it. And even if you bring it to their attention, they will just deny it, because it's the same with the Trump supporters. They literally are wearing shirts that have Donald Trump with Jesus on their shirts. And they're saying, no, I don't worship him. He's my president, right? They're putting Jesus Christ on the same pedestal as Donald Trump. They're making golden statues and idols of him, and they still deny it. They're like, I'm not worshiping him. I don't worship him. They have all this stuff in their front lawn. Think of it as Christmas in July. These people have Trump banners in their lawn that they don't take down all year long. I'd say that's idol worship. Most of these people have Trump flags in their lawn. They don't have anything worshiping Jesus Christ in their lawn, right? So back to the point here is they're not going to let this these new AI infrastructure plants go offline. And they're pledging that they're fast tracking this, which I did just cover, where he signed these bills immediately, then automatically distracted people from paying attention to what they are by talking about releasing the JFK and Martin Luther King and RFK files. So everybody just zips over to that instead of paying attention to this and paying attention to literally what they talk about every single time they meet at the World Economic Forum. AI governance, that's what they're doing, right? And America's going to be number one in AI infrastructure and artificial intelligence, right? So it tells us that, well, we're the hub for the New World Order here in America. And through mind control, these people will still be convinced that they are not supporting a New World Order because they're too busy idol worshiping and being caught up in ridiculous things like what's a man and what's a woman. So this AI infrastructure is going to have its own power grid. They don't care about our power grid for us, right? That's by design. When you hear Donald Trump say that, something should go off in your head where you say, hey, wait a minute, our power grid's not strong enough, not good enough. Wait, what? He said it's salty, it's flaky? Our power grid? Well, why don't we focus on that? Why are we giving hundreds of millions of dollars to other countries, billions of dollars to other countries? Why are we doing all these other things with their tax money? Shouldn't we focus on the power grid so we have electricity? Well, that's done by design because they plan on pulling the plug from the power grid. They're not going to solve that problem because they don't want to solve it. They're just going to keep you distracted by saying the power grid sucks, the power grid's going to go offline, it's very vulnerable to an attack, but this guy is wearing drag over here and he wants to go play basketball with a bunch of girls. And they go, oh yeah, let's go get him, get your pitchfork about the insanity that shouldn't even be normal. These people should be put in paddy wagons, right? Now they'll pay attention to that instead of paying attention to things like our power grid. Right? Oh, give the money to Ukraine. All this stuff they tell you the money goes to. These people are supposed to be working for us, right? Well, our society's not going to be able to function without electricity. None of us are Amish, are we? I mean, we could do some things on our own, right? I'm sure some of you can farm. Some of you have trades that you could do, which is wonderful. Everybody should have trades. That's very important. But let's be real. The majority of us can't live the way the Amish do. And even the Amish, even they do use some type of technology, gas-powered things. There's some stuff that they do in fact use. So you'd think that'd be the number one priority if we elect a government and our government works for us, is to make sure that that can't go offline. Well, they want it to go offline. They're not going to let their AI infrastructure go offline. They're certainly not going to let their cell phones go offline because they don't want you to separate from the beast, from the matrix. They need to keep you under mind control and hypnosis because remember, they want to feed you propaganda when it goes off. Now, when it comes back, of course, we'll have our brand new power grid, right? Our green energy power grid where we'll just be thankful to have electricity. So we'll be willing to ration it, but we won't really be rationing it on our own. They won't say, hey, can you turn your power off on Friday at 8 o'clock at night? No. When you have all this smart technology in place, the government will just automatically shut your lights off at 8 o'clock at night every single night, and you'll get used to it. You'll just be thankful during the day that you actually had running water, and you'll say, I could live like this. And then you'll wake up one night in a deep sweat, and you'll say, hey, wait a minute. Didn't I hear that like from Shawshank or some of those movies about prison, right? I think yell, lights out, right? And they turn off the lights and they lock you in your cell. Then you get a little bit of recess time. Oh, crap. Yeah, that's happening to us now because of the carbon footprint and everything else that gets put into place, which will come eventually. Trump is here to put in this infrastructure first. But if you think that Trump is bringing back that gas and all this stuff, they're going to sabotage that too. The plan here with Agenda 2030 is everything's going to be green, okay? So he's telling people what they want to hear. You could pick your car, you could buy gas. All the car manufacturers are in on it too. They don't want to be making gas-powered stuff. They're still making it because they're just easing you in. They're easing you in. That's what everything they do is. They ease you into it, right? Just like they eased the cell phone. People at first didn't even want one. I remember when they first came out, everybody's like, I don't want a phone. I remember people telling me, like, I have a phone, and my girlfriend could call me, and I'm trying to sleep, or my parents are calling me in the middle of the night, and I have a It's like, oh, okay. Right. Nobody wanted it. Now nobody can live without it. So they ease you into all that, and they're going to ease everybody in to everything being electric. And think about when they change your way of life with shutting the grid off, with the government's grid still being on because the AI infrastructure will be in place, and then telling you when it comes back that everything's green now, we have a new grid, but we're going to ration electricity, and you're going to say, I'm just glad to have it, right? That's how this whole thing works. But nobody out there noticed that he talked about how bad our power grid is and how our grid won't be able to, it might not be online, so we have to make sure that they have their own power plant so our AI infrastructure can always run along with Starlink up there so we could have Skynet in place. Welcome to America, folks, the hub of the New World Order nightmare. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.